Joshua chapters 10 and 11. And when Adoni-Bezek, king of Jerusalem, heard that Joshua had taken Gai and destroyed it, as he did to Jericho and its king, even so they did to Gai and its king, and that the inhabitants of Gabaon had gone over to Joshua and Israel, then they were greatly terrified by them, for the king of the Gabaon was a great city, as one of the chief cities, and all its men were mighty. So Adoni-Bezek, king of Jerusalem, sent Elam, king of Hebron, to Phidon, king of Jerimoth, and to Jephthah, king of Lachish, and to Dabin, king of Adullam, saying, Come hither to me, and help me, and let us take Gabaon. For the Gabaonites have gone over to Joshua and to the children of Israel. And the 5 kings of the Jebusites went up, the king of Jerusalem, to the king of Hebron, and the king of Jerimoth, and the king of Lachish, and the king of Adullam, they and all their people, and encamped around Gabaon, and besieged it. And the inhabitants of Gabaon sent to Joshua into the camp of Galgala, saying, Slack not thy hands from thy servants, come up quickly to us, and help us, and rescue us, for all the kings of the Amorites who dwell in the hill country are gathered together against us. And Joshua went from Galgala, and he and all the people of war with him, every one mighty in strength. The Lord said to Joshua, Fear them not, for I have delivered them into thy hands. There shall not be one of them left before you. And when Joshua came suddenly upon them, he had advanced all the night out from Galgala. And the Lord struck them with terror before the children of Israel, and the Lord destroyed them with a great slaughter at Gabaon. And he had pursued them by the way of the going up to Oronan, and they smote them to Azekah and to Makkedah. And when they fled from the face of the children of Israel at the descent of Oronan, then the Lord cast upon them hailstones from heaven to Azekah, and they were more than died by the hailstones, than those whom the children of Israel slew with the sword in the battle. Then Joshua spoke to the Lord in the day in which the Lord delivered the Amorite into the power of Israel, when he destroyed them in Gabaon. And they were destroyed from before the children of Israel. And Joshua said, Let the sun stand over against Gabaon, and the moon over against the valley of Elon. And the sun and the moon stood still, until God had executed vengeance on their enemies. And the sun stood still in the midst of heaven. It did not proceed to set till the end of one day. And there was not such a day either before or after, so that God should hearken to a man, because the Lord fought on the side of Israel. And these 5 kings fled, and hid themselves in a cave that is in Makkedah. And it was told to Joshua, saying, The 5 kings have been found hid in the cave that is in Makkedah. And Joshua said, Roll stones to the mouth of the cave, and set men to watch over them. But do not ye stand, but pursue after your enemies, and attack the rear of them, and do not suffer them to enter into their cities, for the Lord our God has delivered them into our hands. And it came to pass, when Joshua and all Israel ceased destroying them utterly with a very great slaughter, that they that escaped took refuge in the strong cities. And all the people returned safe to Joshua to Makkedah, and no one of the children of Israel murmured with his tongue. And Joshua said, Open the cave, and bring out these 5 kings out of the cave. And they brought out the 5 kings out of the cave, the king of Jerusalem, and the king of Hebron, and the king of Jerimoth, and the king of Lachish, and the king of Adullam. And when they brought them out to Joshua, then Joshua called together all Israel, and the chiefs of the army that went with them, saying to them, Come forward, and set your feet on their necks. And they came, and set their feet on their necks. And Joshua said to them, Do not fear them, neither be cowardly. Be courageous and strong, for thus the Lord will do to all your enemies against whom ye fight. And Joshua slew them, and hanged them on 5 trees, and they hung upon the trees until the evening. And it came to pass toward the setting of the sun, Joshua commanded, and they took them down from the trees, and cast them into the cave, into which they had fled for refuge, and rolled stones to the cave, which remained till this day. And they took Makkedah on that day, and slew the inhabitants with the edge of the sword, and they utterly destroyed every living thing that was in it. And there was none left in it that was preserved and had escaped. And they did to the king of Makkedah, as they did to the king of Jericho. And Joshua and all Israel with him departed out of Makkedah to Libnah, and besieged Libnah. And the Lord delivered it into the hands of Israel, and they took it, and its king, and slew the inhabitants with the edge of the sword, and everything breathing in it, and there was not left in it any that survived and escaped, and they did to its king, as they did to the king of Jericho. And Joshua and all Israel with him departed from Libnah to Lachish, and he encamped about it and besieged it. And the Lord delivered Lachish into the hands of Israel, and they took it on the 2nd day, and they put the inhabitants to death with the edge of the sword, and utterly destroyed it, as they had done to Libnah. Then Elam, the king of Gezer, went up to help Lachish, and Joshua smote him and his people with the edge of the sword, until there was none left to him one that was preserved and escaped. And Joshua and all Israel with him departed from Lachish to Adullam, and he besieged it and took it. And the Lord delivered it into the hand of Israel, And he took it on that day, and slew the inhabitants with the edge of the sword, and slew everything breathing in it, as they did to Lachish. And Joshua and all Israel with him departed to Hebron, and encamped about it. And he smote it with the edge of the sword, and all living creatures that were in it, and there was no one preserved. They destroyed it, and all things in it, as they did to Adullam. And Joshua and all Israel returned to Dabir, and they encamped about it. And they took it, and its king, and its villages, and he smote it with the edge of the sword, and they destroyed it, and everything breathing in it. And they did not leave in it any one that was preserved, as they did to Hebron and her king, so they did to Dabir and her king. And Joshua smote all the land of the hill country, and Negeb and the plain country, and Asadoth and her kings, and they did not leave of them one that was saved. And they utterly destroyed everything that had breath of life, as the Lord God of Israel commanded. From Kadesh Barnea to Gaza, all Gosam, as far as Gabaon. And Joshua smote once for all their kings, and their land, because the Lord God of Israel fought on the side of Israel. And when Jabez the king of Asor heard, he sent to Jobab king of Meron, and to the king of Simoon, and the king of Aziph, and to the kings who were by the great Sidon, to the hill country, and to Arabah opposite Canaroth, and to the plain, and to Phenador, and to the Canaanites on the coast eastward, and to the Amorites on the coast, and the Kettites, and the Perizzites, and the Jebusites in the mountain, and the Evites, and those dwelling under Mount Hermon, in the land of Massimah. And they and their kings with them went forth, as the sands of the sea in multitude, and horses, and very many chariots. And all the kings assembled in person, and came to the same place, and encamped at the waters of Meron to war with Israel. And the Lord said to Joshua, Be not afraid of them, for tomorrow at this time I will put them to flight before Israel. Thou shalt huff their horses, and burn their chariots with fire. And Joshua and all the men of war came upon them at the water of Meron suddenly, and they attacked them in the hill country. And the Lord delivered them into the power of Israel, and they smote them, and pursued them to great Sidon, and to Massaron, and to plains of Massach eastward. And they destroyed them, though there was not one of them left that survived. And Joshua did to them as the Lord commanded him. He huffed their horses, and burned their chariots with fire. And Joshua returned at that time, and took Asor and her king. Now Asor in former time was the chief of these kingdoms. And they slew with the sword all that breathed in it, and utterly destroyed them all, and there was no living thing left in it, and they burnt Asor with fire. And Joshua took all the cities of the kingdoms, and their kings, and slew them with the edge of the sword, and utterly slew them, as Moses the servant of the Lord commanded. But all the walled cities Israel burnt not, but Israel burnt Asor only. And the children of Israel took all its spoils to themselves, and they slew all the men with the edge of the sword, until he destroyed them. They left not one of them breathing. As the Lord commanded his servant Moses, even so Moses commanded Joshua, and so Joshua did. He transgressed no precept of all that Moses commanded him. And Joshua took all the hill country, and all the land of Negeb, and all the land of Gosam, and the plain country, and that toward the west, and the mountain of Israel, and the low country by the mountain, from the mountain of Kelka, and that which goes up to Seir, as far as Balagad, and the plains of Libanus, under Mount Hermon. And he took all their kings, and destroyed and slew them. And for many days Joshua waged war with these kings. And there was no city which Israel took not. They took all in war. For it was of the Lord to harden their hearts to go forth to war against Israel, that they might be utterly destroyed, that mercy should not be granted to them, but that they should be utterly destroyed, as the Lord said to Moses. And Joshua came at that time, and utterly destroyed the Anakim out of the hill country, from Hebron, and from Debir, and from Anaboth, and from all the race of Israel, and from all the mountains of Judah with their cities. And Joshua utterly destroyed them. There was not any one left of the Anakim by the children of Israel, only there was left of them in Gaza, and in Gath, and in Aseldo. And Joshua took all the land as the Lord commanded Moses, and Joshua gave them for an inheritance to Israel by division according to their tribes, and the land ceased from war. Psalm 68, 69 in Hebrew, verses 1 through 19. For the end, a psalm of David, for alternate strains. Save me, O God, for the waters have come into my soul. I am stuck fast in deep mire, and there is no standing. I am come into the depths of the sea, and a storm has overwhelmed me. I am weary of crying. My throat has become hoarse. Mine eyes have failed by my waiting on my God. They that hate me without a cause are more than the hairs of my head. My enemies that persecute me unrighteously are strengthened. Then I restore that which I took not away. O God, thou knowest my foolishness, and my transgressions are not hidden from thee. Let not them that wait on thee, O Lord of hosts, be ashamed on my account. Let not them that seek thee be ashamed on my account, O God of Israel. For I have suffered reproach for thy sake. Shame has covered my face. I became a stranger to my brethren, and a stranger to my mother's children. For the zeal of thine house has eaten me up, and the reproaches of them that reproach thee are fallen upon me. And I bowed down my soul with fasting, and that was made my reproach. And I put on sackcloth for my covering, and I became a proverb to them. They that sit in the gate talked against me, and they that drink wine sang against me. But I will cry to thee, O Lord, in my prayer, O God. It is a propitious time. In the multitude of thy mercy hear me, in the truth of thy salvation. Save me from the mire, that I stick not in it. Let me be delivered from them that hate me, and from the deep waters. Let not the water flood drown me, nor let the deep swallow me up. Neither let the well shed its mouth upon me. Hear me, O Lord, for thy mercy is good. According to the multitude of thy compassions, look upon me. And turn not away thy face from thy servant, for I am afflicted. Hear me speedily. Draw nigh to my soul, and redeem it. Deliver me because of mine enemies. For thou knowest my reproach, and my shame, and my confusion. All that afflict me are before thee. Proverbs chapter 14, verses 6 through 10. Thou shalt seek wisdom with bad men, and shalt not find it, but discretion is easily available with the prudent. All things are adverse to a foolish man, but wise lips are the weapons of discretion. The wisdom of the prudent will understand their ways, but the folly of fools leads astray. The houses of transgressors will need purification, but the houses of the just are acceptable. If a man's mind is intelligent, his soul is sorrowful, and when he rejoices, he has no fellowship with pride. The Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, chapter 15, verses 1 through 20. And straightway in the morning the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council, and bound Jesus, and carried him away, and delivered him to Pilate. And Pilate asked him, Art thou the king of the Jews? And he answering said unto him, Thou sayest it. And the chief priests accused him of many things, but he answered nothing. And Pilate asked him again, saying, Answerest thou nothing? Behold, how many things they witness against thee. But Jesus yet answered nothing, so that Pilate marveled. Now at that feast he released unto them one prisoner, whomsoever they desired. And there was one named Barabbas, which lay bound with them that had made insurrection with him, who had committed murder in the insurrection. And the multitude, crying aloud, began to desire him to do as he had ever done unto them. But Pilate answered them, saying, Will ye that I release unto you the king of the Jews? For he knew that the chief priests had delivered him for envy. But the chief priests moved the people, that he should rather release Barabbas unto them. And Pilate answered and said again unto them, What will ye then what I shall do unto him whom ye call the king of the Jews? And they cried out again, Crucify him. Then Pilate said unto them, Why, what evil hath he done? And they cried out the more exceedingly, Crucify him. And so Pilate, willing to content the people, released Barabbas unto them, and delivered Jesus, when he had scourged him, to be crucified. And the soldiers led him away into the hall called Praetorium, and they called together the whole band. And they clothed him with purple, and platted a crown of thorns, and put it about his head, and began to salute him, Hail, King of the Jews! And they smote him on the head with a reed, and did spit upon him, and bowing their knees worshipped him. And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple from him, and put his own clothes on him, and led him out to crucify him.